New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Good morning. Hello. Good afternoon. Whatever time of day it is for you, welcome back. I am Reverend Dr. Sharri Johnson, and I am delighted to welcome you to Global Focus today. This week, we have a real firecracker for a guest. Normally, my guests are not pulpit ministers, but I couldn't resist this one because she has not one but two pulpits. Our guest today is Reverend Barbara Jean Schreiner-Trudel. She is a CSL minister and founder of Spiritual Living on the Lake in Toronto, and also leads Unity Spiritual Center Kitchener, which is sort of like a suburb of Toronto. So I basically, this lady juggles a chainsaw, a bowling ball, and a raw egg for a living. I can hardly wait to hear how you let this happen and how you keep it going. Welcome.
Thank you, Sharri. I'm so delighted to be here. It's really a joy. And yeah, I love that analogy of the juggling of all those things. That's kind of what life is like.
So I usually ask people, how did you come to New Thought in the first place? And then how did you get to where you are in New Thought? You can start anywhere you like. This is a story I really want to hear.
My journey actually began in a Nazarene church when I was 27. My mother-in-law at the time invited me to go to church. And because I really wanted her to like me, I thought I can endure an hour of church. That would, I could do that. So I decided to go. Now, I was not raised with religion at all. I could probably count on one hand the number of times I'd been in a church. And so I decided to go with her that night. And I don't know what happened in there, but I had a complete spiritual epiphany. It felt like when I walked in, I was in complete darkness. And when I left that church that night, I was in the light. I knew God as love. It was profound. It was life-altering, life-changing. It was the beginning. It was the beginning. But I couldn't stay in that church because they kept telling me that everybody else was going to hell. And I kept thinking, no, the experience I had was of a loving God. How is it possible that the rabbi or the person who's never heard of Jesus Christ it didn't make sense to me, and they couldn't answer those questions. And so I left there after a year and a half and more confused than ever. And a friend told me about the Center for Spiritual Living. And I started attending the Calgary Center, which at the time was the Center for Positive Living, and haven't looked back. Life changed.
You skipped over the part where you went from doing whatever it was you were doing before you went to that first church and becoming a minister and becoming a minister and becoming a minister. So fill in the blanks for us.
Well, I've had a life, and so I've been married 5 times. My husband keeps saying that 5th time's the charm. We've been married for 21 years, so this one's actually sticking. And it was a journey of trying to find myself. I think throughout my life journey, there was a lot of turmoil and upset, lots of challenges that I faced. I had 2 very violent marriages. So finding me and changing the story, changing the narrative was really what I had to do. I started out, working in a drugstore as a teenager, and then started working for the daily newspaper in Calgary in the advertising department, where I spent 10 years. Left there, studied journalism, finished my training, and went right into real estate because that's a natural progression. And my real estate career allowed me the time and the flexibility to study for ministry. And in 1992, I think it was 92, in the fall was my first day of Science Mind classes. And I told Reverend Carol Carnes on that day that I would become a minister. And she was like, yeah, right. Kind of rolling her eyes like that's going to happen. I think she'd heard it too many times to actually believe it. And she told me the only way it was going to happen is I would have to start my own center because nobody would hire me straight out of school. And so my first ministry was in Vernon, BC. I was hired straight out of school and became their minister for a year and a half when it was time for me to move to Toronto. And I started the Center for Spiritual Living Toronto with Connie Phelps. The two of us were there together for the first time. And then she went on to Winnipeg. She went on to Kamloops, started a center there. And then she went on to Kenya to, just to ramp it up a little bit more and started there, which I'm going to Kenya in January, actually, for the convention, conference. So I'm really excited about that.
I'll bet.
So natural progression.
That's good. We're making progress. However, I still want to know how you went from being a CSL pulpit minister to being a CSL pulpit minister and a Unity pulpit minister.
Well, it's
at the same time.
Well, a couple of years ago, I was actually hired by a Unity church to be their minister, and I was there for about 3 years. So in that time, I did the upgrading that they required in order to take my CSL ordination and qualify me to be a Unity ordained minister as well. So I'm now ordained in both. And I left that church in 2021, and I founded CSL on the Lake. It was an interesting thing because I actually got a call from head office going, so could there be a CSL in Toronto again? And I'm like, well, probably, yes. And she goes, well, it was you I was thinking of. She said, I have somebody in mind, I think, who could do this. And so that's how she started the conversation. Then she turned around and went, so got to come clean because you're the one I had in mind. And so I sat back and went, well, let me think about it. And I thought, well, I'll take a step forward. And if there's no blocks, I'll take another step. And that's what I've done, is just put one foot in front of the other. And it's all come together so beautifully. I had left that Unity church about 2 months after I started CSL on the Lake, and was, just doing my work. I was on the board of directors for the Association of Unity Churches in Canada. I'm their prayer chaplain. And from there, the Kitchener Center said, we need a minister of record. So I'm not doing the talks every Sunday. I speak there about once every month to 6 weeks, but I do oversee basic things to make sure everything is moving in alignment, and that their head person, Cheryl Rogers, has what she needs to facilitate the work as the leader of that center. So I'm kind of in the wings. So it's a little bit easier than actually being there every week.
Okay.
Yeah.
So instead of a raw egg, it's an apple, but still.
I know.
That's still really impressive. And that's not all. I mean, you're doing all kinds of stuff. You've got one regular program on New Thought Media Network.
Two regular programs on New Thought.
Two regular programs and a special event that you're getting ready to do. And the special event is coming up real quick.
Well, the special event is tonight, and it's a 90-minute special presentation on the New Thought Media Network called Transgender Awareness. And the challenges that trans people are faced with today are, I really believe, largely due to ignorance. We don't know what we don't know. And so understanding how somebody could be born in a male body but actually be a woman, that's not connecting for cisgender people. So the idea of having this show was just looking at all the disparity between actual human rights, because transgender people should have those,
Yeah.
and in many cases do not. And I figured that this could be a very educational piece to let people know, here's what's going on in the world, and here's what we need to acknowledge or recognize as individuals. And if we would just stay in our lane, right? If I live my life, right, and I love you enough to let you live yours, we could get along quite nicely. But we tend to overstep, and we want to correct somebody else's mistake because it doesn't fit in alignment with our beliefs. And I think, there just needs to be some change there. So on tonight's show, I have a minister of a church in Toronto here called MCC Toronto. It's Metropolitan Community Church. It's the gay church in Toronto. It's one of the most high-powered social activist type churches there is. It's very positive and life-affirming. It's a great place. And the minister is a transgender woman who is living a remarkable life here in Toronto, who is not a social activist at all, and yet is forced into that role because of who she is. And so her and I are co-hosting tonight. And then we've got a couple of guests as well, and a beautiful musician, Summer Osborne, is going to be singing as well. And so we've just got this great lineup of conversation to truly normalize the experience of being a human in the world today and having a path a little different than somebody else's. But for me, it's about everybody has a right to exist.
Yeah.
So let's just normalize things a little bit so people realize this person is no different than anybody else, right?
Well, we're all unique, but
we're all unique and special.
But we are all also little drops of God with skin on them.
Exactly right.
It just sounds wonderful. And it's on New Thought Media, which means it's going to be recorded and archived, so people will be able to go back and see it later again.
Absolutely.
Because that doesn't sound to me like a one-off thing.
Well, it's hard to say. It may morph into something else, but because this is the end of Transgender Awareness Week, and yesterday was the day of remembrance for transgender people who have died, it was like today just felt like a really great way of wrapping up that week to highlight the beauty and the remarkable gifts and talents of this great part of our community that maybe has been ignored. And I just want to see people be able to be who they are, rather than being forced into being something that they don't even recognize.
Right.
So for me, it's about human rights. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I'm excited about it.
Okay, so tell us also about the Joy Show. I love acronyms. Tell us about the Joy Show.
The Joy Show, I've been doing now for, I think, 2 years. And Joy is an acronym that means just one you. And so on the show, I just interview people talking about their life and their journey, what it is they do, why they do it, how they do it, whatever, celebrating the uniqueness of all of us. And at the same time, just giving a place where people can talk about what it is they're passionate about, what they love, how interesting they are. So it's really just, and we talk about what's going on in the world as well, what's happening in the world that impacts me or affects me, and how do I feel about that? So it's that personal journey. It's a place where you get to be you and be fully loved and accepted for it.
Sounds good to me. And what's your other program?
Spirit Cafe, which is on Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And Spirit Cafe is courageous conversations. So what we try to do there is talk about the topics that nobody wants to talk about, the religion, the politics, the whatever. We have those conversations. And I think our show, was it last week, was a little bit about what's going on in the world and how that's impacting our Jewish friends and family, and also how we all feel about what's going on, because we like to judge. We like to go, this side is right and this side is wrong. But what if we acknowledge that there's one thing going on, and that we all live, move, and have our being in that divine space? And so everyone has a belief about whether they're right or wrong. But what if we set aside the judgment and bring love to the table? And by love, I do mean oneness, where we connect authentically with each other and listen and spend time together and discover things about things that make us different and things that make us the same. And just find a way to sort of bridge these gaps of disparity, these gaps of fear, so that we can build a community of love. And it's a big conversation,
It is.
trying to deal with the world at large without taking sides.
My very first CSL minister, retired now, the second time, so I think it's going to take this time.
Who was your minister?
Reverend Dr. Chris Michaels
I
gave.
love Chris Michaels.
I do too. I love him to pieces, and I quote him every week. I quote him to somebody. This particular quote just sings in my heart. He told me, he said it in a Sunday talk, but then we talked about it later, that his dream was to address the United Nations,
Mm-hmm.
and that his speech would consist of 3 words. He would walk in, he would stand up straight, he would look each one of them in the eye, and he would say, "War is obsolete." And then he would turn around and walk out. and that has hooked me so much. And the other thing that which is something I came up with, and I'm not sure why God said it through me, and that is that the proof of that is that nobody ever, anywhere on this planet or on any planet in existence, anywhere in the universe, ever won a war. One side lost less than the other one, but nobody ever won a war.
Nobody
So that's
won.
exactly the conversation. That's wonderful. I'm so glad you're doing that.
Well, when I was at the Unity Conference in June, one of the lovely women there took us on a drive around. So, we can just see the area and stuff like this. And she took us to a cemetery. And as we were driving in, she said, Americans really like to kill their young men. And we drove in, and there were all the markers for all the lives that have been lost by the people who are in the services. And as I'm looking at these rows and rows of white headstones, I just burst into tears. What a waste. There's nothing. I know there's Americans and Canadians alike who would disagree with me that there's a reason why we go to war. There is not a good reason to go to war. If I kill your brother, you're probably going to be a little ticked off at me and want to kill me.
You put a very, very important word in that sentence. You said there is not a good reason to go to war. There are many, many, many bad reasons to go to war.
Oh, yeah.
There are no good ones.
None. And the only winners in a war are the manufacturers of the arms. Those are the only winners. Yep. And they're not winning. They're acquiring a great mass fortune. Yeah. But I truly believe that the universe is very exacting, and that whatever we bring into life, what we do through our life experience, comes back to us multiplied and overflowing.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Something's going to come back and bite them on the butt so bad.
Yeah.
And I am hopeful that by the time that happens, I will have expanded my consciousness and spiritual awareness enough that I won't have a screaming need to be there to see it happen.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
I work every day on trying to not be judgmental. And so when I have a big judgment like I just had there, then I have to take a pause and go, and there's God in all of this. And so let me remember that I am one with all life, and let me know that within even these individuals, there is that divinity. And that's where I want to focus, because the only way they wake up is to find that within themselves.
Have you
And
ever seen a puppy chase its tail?
yes,
That's me with judgment. I've been 30 years ago, I asked God to teach me non-judgment, and like 4 nanoseconds later, I tried to change my mind and God said, but I catch myself judging, and then I judge myself for judging, and then I judge myself for judging myself for judging, and it's the puppy chasing its tail, trying to figure this out, But and I think in a lot of ways, that's what war is. That's the human race chasing its tail. It's the greed in people chasing its tail. So if enough of us wake up, Chris will get to give that talk, and I will be there to applaud.
Absolutely. Boy, that would be a day. Oh, I like that.
That will be a day.
That will be a day.
That will be a day. I don't know when it'll be, but it'll be, and I'll be there.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
so
it's time.
I didn't mean to sidetrack us off into politics. I have spent most of my life, having been raised the way I was raised, trying my damnedest not to talk about politics, but sometimes it just leaps in and plants itself in your lap. Yep. So tell us I'm still fascinated by your 2 hats, your CSL hat and your Unity hat, and the fact that you're wearing them both at the same time. What's the biggest challenge in doing that?
There isn't one.
Ooh.
It's like what I've come to realize, and I've said this to Robert before from New Thought Media, is I have a habit of saying yes. I say yes to the stuff I love. So I love talking about spirituality. I love teaching classes. I hate administration. So I'll just say it like it is. I really don't like that. But when it comes to teaching a class or having one of these shows, talking about these principles, working towards human rights, that fires me up and gets me excited. That gets me out of bed in the morning. And that's what I want to do 24/7. So if I'm doing the good news on Friday night on the New Thought Media Network, I usually do that the first of every month. This month, I'm doing it actually this week, Friday night, 5:00 Mountain Time. So I'm just excited to share good ideas. And my hope is that something said will cause, someone else to wake up and to go, wow, I could do that too. Or I could love myself just as I am. I don't need to be any different. And just changing the messaging that we've received as young people, that somehow we did everything wrong and bad and we should fix ourselves. And I think we don't need fixing. I think we're just fine. We just need to find us.
I'll take an order of that. Like in Harry Met Sally, but not quite the same. So what's the biggest reward? What's the biggest bonus? What's the biggest blessing in doing what you do?
I had an experience on Monday. I serve on some board of directors as well. And one of the boards that I serve on is the Toronto People with AIDS Foundation. And we just moved into a new building. I've been on this board for a couple of years now. And in our new building, we had a blessing on Monday morning. And we had, an Indigenous leader lead us in some drumming and his prayers. And we had somebody come in and pour the libations for the ancestors. We had musicians singing. And I did an opening treatment to bless the space and everyone there. And then my daughter and I sang Karen Drucker's song, I Stand Before You.
Oh, I love Karen.
And we had about probably about 80 people in the room, and none of these are CSL people, right? Like these are just your regular people who are living with HIV, people who have probably the majority of them are either refugees from other countries who are getting their lives saved by being here, or people who are, marginalized in some way. And so it's a broad group of people. So I wasn't quite sure about doing this exercise. But the way I started it was I had everybody create a circle and speak a word of intention for their role, their place, their time at PWA. And it was beautiful. People talked about love and gratitude and bringing their whole self and, different things. And then when we finished that, I said, and now I'm going to get you to stretch a little bit. And Genevieve and I will show you what we're going to do. And so we sang together, and, I stand before you. And what are the lyrics here? I stand before you, knowing we are one. You are the mirror of my soul. I stand before you, honoring the part of you that is whole. And so we went around. I probably sang to a third of the people who were there. And it was so beautiful and so rich to see the tears, to see the fear, but to receive it. Everyone received it, which blew me away. And then we closed it by, just holding hands and singing "Let There Be Peace on Earth." And it was, I still, the hair on my arms goes up just remembering that moment. And to be able to bring our spirituality into the workforce. One of the things that I have done on the boards that I'm a part of, most of them now, is we finish our meetings with a heart seat. And that's where we acknowledge one of the members in our meeting with all the love we can share on them. So every person just goes around, and we just pick the names alphabetically. We'll start off with, whoever's got an A or a B, and they're the first meeting. And then the next month we move it up the alphabet. And I'll tell you, the things people say about each other is so remarkable and so beautiful. So we do it with the board for the Association for Unity Churches Canada. When we meet, we do it with my CSL board. We do it with the PWA board. I do it with the Unity Kitchener board. And I'm now part of the New Thought Media board, and I'll have to talk to Robert about adding it here too.
Absolutely. I don't think that'll be a problem.
Yeah, I don't think
I've
so.
known him a while. I don't think that'll be a problem.
No, he is a love person. Just, yeah, he's beautiful. So I find that as we learn to honor one another, as we take the time and the space to honor each other, sometimes it can be easy to work, and get so focused on work that we forget the people who are around us. And I think for me, at this stage in my life, it's about remembering the people around me and doing my best to stop and pause and be present.
What I'm hearing you say, and I've been a student for so many years that I confirm my learning by teaching it back. But what I'm hearing you say is that for you, it's not a case of life being on the job training for ministry. It's a case of ministry being on the job training for life.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
That's just, what's your, I don't know how you could top that blessing. That is just so fabulous.
It was beautiful.
So I have 4 questions that I ask every single guest.
All right.
And there's no wrong answer. You can take as long as you want to answer it. And you can interpret the question any way that it feels right to you to interpret it. So here's the first one. How does what you're doing at CSL on the Lake, at PWA, at Unity, how does what you're doing there, how you're being there, how does that encourage, develop, support, pick your own verb, conscious evolution?
The whole focus of my work is inspiring people to be who they are. And I think that that's how conscious evolution happens, is I choose to look within myself and find my path and let go of all the shoulds that I have been living under, because any should that I have isn't coming from me. It's somebody else's understanding of life that was given to me at some stage that I accepted. And now every time I get called to do certain things, I'll go, oh, I should. Why should I? Well, because mom said you'd be a good girl if you did that. So I just take should and go, okay, it's probably not mine, so let me say no to that. But I think sharing these tools and doing the work that I do, meeting people where they are, being a bridge that allows for difference, to accept that whether it's language, whether it's sexuality, whether it's country of origin, whether it's skin color, it doesn't really matter. We're all in this together. And so my hope is that every time I help somebody to find their voice, that I've actually helped the evolution of our planet. And as we become aware of our own personal power, we begin to change, because we're all thinking in and out of the same universe. And if I'm thinking uplifting, powerful, positive, loving thoughts, I'm raising consciousness. My hope is to have as many people as possible raising consciousness, rather than going, oh, would you believe what those guys did? Let's let go of the negativity, or interrupt it when it shows up, because it's going to show up.
Okay, good. I like that answer. Here's the next question. It sounds like the same one, so you have to listen closely.
Okay.
It's not the same one. How does what you do at CSL on the Lake and at Unity and at PWA and all of the other boards that you serve on, how does how you be Barbara encourage, support, produce, unveil, pick your own verb, world peace?
I think for me, world peace is an interesting thing because it's so easily accomplished.
Yeah.
It really is. If all of us woke up one morning going, I feel really good today, I think I'll just go to the beach. We would have, in that moment, we would have world peace. So it's not this big, odd, weird thing that is impossible. It's just that each one of us individually has to choose it. And we have to choose it at the same time. And it can't be dependent on circumstance. So I have to choose to be peaceful in the midst of somebody cutting me off in traffic. I have to choose to be peaceful when the clerk at the grocery store is being abrupt or ignoring me or whatever. I have to choose to be peaceful when my children do something I don't approve of. Peace is a choice. It doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't happen because somebody laid a gun down. It is a change of consciousness that has to happen in me. And like Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. So I choose to model to the best of my ability on my best days, and on my days when I don't show up in my prime, I choose to forgive myself and also to forgive others. Because forgiveness isn't about anybody else. It's about cutting the chains that bind me to the past. Yeah. And I don't want to live there. I want to live now and create something beautiful moving forward. So yeah, peace, done deal.
Yay. Okay, here's the next one. This is the most challenging one for a lot of folks. You might want to close your eyes, because here's the question. Provided or presuming that every single detail, every experience, every encounter, every relationship, every event goes exactly the way you want it to go, exactly the way you want it to go for the next 10 years, what does Barbara Schreiner-Trudel look like 10 years from now?
Well, she's 20 pounds lighter. For starters. um, um, you know,
It's an answer I've never gotten before.
good. Yay! Something new. You know, when I think about my life 10 years from now, you know, when you get to a certain age, thinking ahead 10 years, you go, that's, you know, that's up there. But the reality is that, you know, the way life is going these days, living to 100 is not so unusual. So I figure I'm just entering midlife here, so I've got lots of time left. So 10 years, my vision is that the work that I do is so well supported that I don't do any administrative work whatsoever. I am speaking and doing my shows and having a blast doing it, but I'm not doing the paper shuffling. That's being done by somebody else. And I have a real large following of people who are seeing the value of the work that I'm doing and are excited to participate in it. And so there's a great growth. I will have finally written the book that I've been planning on writing for. There's two of them. One is called When Joy Shows Up, and that's, you know, that journey to the authentic self. Obviously, I'm not quite there yet because it's not finished. And then the other one is This Thing That I Do. When I was studying for ministry, when I was studying to be a practitioner, I was a realtor at the time, and the closing room in the real estate office, where most people write real estate deals, I would be in there doing treatment with people. And in doing treatment with them, because, you know, realtors would come to me and say, oh, I have this problem or that problem, and we'd go and we'd treat. So that journey has been an interesting one, because the whole idea of writing that book, This Thing That I Do, is just about what treatment is, why I do it, the benefits of it. But I call it This Thing That I Do because if I go to somebody who doesn't know us, they go, what's treatment? So I just, well, there's this thing that I do. Would you like me to do it with you? And they say yes, and we treat.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, final question.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on just a second while I get my screen ready. The final question is, will you come back?
Oh, of course, always.
My very next opening is October 8th of next year. Can I plug you in?
Of course you can.
Excellent, excellent, excellent.
Of course,
Thank you
of
so
course. It is my pleasure. Send me an email that hopefully I receive.
I have one more question.
Okay.
And that is, is there anything at all that you would like the world to know that I haven't asked you about?
Anything in the world that you would like, that I would like people to know? I think what I want people to know is that your point of power is yourself, and your journey in life comes from you. That your resistance to where you are or what you're doing is what's causing your suffering. And that in the moment that you will just drop into your life experience and have it, and accept yourself as you are, where you are, without judgment and criticism, in that moment, you'll experience a really odd thing. It's called joy, and it just bubbles up inside and becomes a part of us. And the other piece of it is freedom. When we no longer have to wear all these masks, we're not worried about how we show up to each individual person. We are consistent because we're just being ourselves. Just be you. Everybody else is taken. And wanting to be somebody else just creates despair.
I had
you are who you are.
I had a professor in ministerial school, and I can't for the life of me remember which one of them it was, but I used to get so tickled at him because he would say, if you were too wrapped up in doing, he would say, you need a Sinatra moment. Don't do, be. Do, be, do, be, do, be, do, be, do, D.
I love that. We are a bunch of human doers.
Yes, we are. And thank you so much. I have so very much enjoyed having you here, and I can't wait to see you back again. And folks, be sure you're here next week, because next week we have Reverend Verona Garland from Prosperity on the Move, and that's something we could all use another serving of.
Absolutely.
In the meantime, have a great week. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Sherry. Bye.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hepperlin Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Spiritual Center, Kitchener, Om Center for Spiritual Living, La Mesa, Satya Center, Center for Spiritual Living, North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and Center for Spiritual Living, Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for making New Thought Media Network a place to be. Please come be you. And remember, like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing.